the cloud. And we are recording again. So with that, thank you for letting me take the housekeeping items there. Ernie, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and then a moment of silence for our first responders and our police and those that are keeping us safe. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, liberty and justice for all. Moment of silence, please. Okay, thank you.
I got a couple more participants here.
Okay, going down the agenda. First of all, Mark has verified we do have a quorum. Review the tracking log, determine the need for a workshop. I think we have nothing on the log. Is that correct, Mark?
That is true.
Okay, so there'll be no need for a workshop at this point. Next, is there any public comment on non-agenda items? I don't believe we have any public in doing.
We have one person here. I'll send them a request to unmute. So doesn't look like there's anyone outside.
Okay. Let's go on to the minutes. Any comments on the minutes for August 12th? Hearing no comments, I have none. Minutes are approved, Ruth.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda. I'm sorry, subdivision. There's no subdivision, land development applications, no conditional use for variances, no ordinance amendments. I'm going to go into old business. I am going to switch to old business and talk about pipeline ordinance guidance from the Board of Supervisors. I'm going to go to that first. We presented to the Board of Supervisors, what was it, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And we submitted the letter that is written, and they voted on accepting our recommendation, and we'd like the Planning Commission to work on by doing the following. Identify uses that should not be located near pipelines, identify what zoning districts those uses are currently permitted, and identify parcels where these uses could be located safely. Any thoughts or comments on that before I give you my thoughts? Anybody want to mention anything about that? Okay. When we had talked through this, through the couple of times we spoke about this, I think the key part, we've done a lot where we know where the pipelines are going. Mark, my thought was if we could just identify what we think are the districts that would be impacted, and I think it might be all of them, I'm not sure about that. But I think we identify the districts that could be impacted, and then my suggestion is brainstorm on like what kind of facilities would we want to maybe put some restrictions on. For example, if you want to put a school or say a large volume place, something like that, or some type of business, we might want to think about if it's new, is there anything we can put on there that might make it from a more safer perspective? And any thoughts on that, Mark?
So districts, I did do an analysis early on. I had some notes on that, so I'll have to pull those out and let you know. I think it's just about every zoning district except a couple. So, okay. And then I think there were a couple R districts down near Westchester Pike or something, R3 or
okay.
4. And then identify high intensity uses like schools, nursing homes, that type of thing. And you're looking for maybe suggestions on how those uses could go into districts where they'd be close, or?
Well, for example, my thought was, let's just pick one. Let's just say a school or a nursing home or a child care facility, right?
Okay.
If you had, say, those types of industries, we could possibly put in there that, egress, there must be like maybe a minimum of, say, so many egresses from the building that are, say, facing away from where the pipeline would be, something of that nature. There's also in one of the ordinances, I don't have it in front of me, they talk about, I forget the zone they call it, where it's a zone of interest. I don't know if that would really help because it looks for building some type of evacuation plans or what have you. But it also asks for information from the pipeline, but I'm not sure that might be, but it might be something we have to look at. I forget what they call it, specific name for it. So my point would be, if we identify, what would be a high use, A, B, what areas could they actually be built in, B, and then C would be, are they near a pipeline? I think we could narrow it down to, probably just a few areas that would really apply. And then the next step would be to determine what type of restrictions we would think might be acceptable or we think might be helpful. And I'm really considering more along the lines of protection from an explosion, egress, that type of thing. And also, if you think about it, what type of access any type of emergency vehicles would have. So that was kind of my thought. I'll open it up to the floor if anyone else wants to speak on that.
Ernie, my only comment would be, can we be more restricted than what the building code is? I don't think we can in terms of number of egresses.
I don't know. That's a good question. Mark, do you know anything about that?
Typically, ordinances typically don't get into that level of detail at the municipal ordinance level. So, but yes, you can have an ordinance that is more restrictive than the building code. You have to have some pretty good reasons, I think, to make it enforceable, but you can do it. There, some municipalities in the past and before, for example, before sprinklers were required in single-family homes in the building code, West Whiteland Township had an ordinance that says you shall sprinkle your home, and they sprinkled homes for 20 years before it made it into the building code, and they were successful in using that. So I think it can be done. I'd have to talk with our solicitor about it. I don't think that the building code is pretty good about egress. So anybody who's been in the construction industry knows that, you look at a school, there's egress everywhere. So I think what we're concerned with is that there's plenty on the opposite side of that hazard that we perceive as a hazard, and that so that they can exit that way in the event of an incident.
Right. For example, if there was an explosion and it was against an egress, it wouldn't block that egress. That's the type of thing that I'm thinking about. So I guess to go forward, moving forward on that, I guess we have to do some homework. I'll ask maybe we can bring this up again in the next meeting, but maybe the people can bring to the forefront, like what type of buildings. I've got a list already. I've mentioned a school, a nursing home, a child facility. We can make a list of those types of things that might be most appropriate or potential candidates. And then maybe Mark, if maybe your staff, not to work with your staff, not to give work to your staff, but could possibly identify the districts, or we could look at the districts, I suppose, and see where they were. And then we'd have to take a look at the ordinance to see what's restricted in those particular districts, correct?
Yeah, I think, where the board was kind of like the suggestion we had about, okay, identify high intensity uses. I think we know most of those off the top of our head.
Right.
So what I can do is I can put together, the ones that we've already talked about, the nursing home, the daycare, the school, the hospital, or that type of thing. So, and then identify what zoning districts are permitted in, and then identify, okay, where those uses may be able to go, and not be impacted by a pipeline or be outside of some kind of zone of influence. And I don't know what that distance is. So I guess I need to understand that. I mean,
Well, let's do this. Let's just see if we can get the high intensity areas and then what districts they could actually be in. We can review that the next time. We can put that out in the interim. And then as far as what we're going to do about it, I think we need to start brainstorming about what that would look like. I don't know if there's anybody else who's written ordinances similar to that, but you know, we might identify, well, what is it we need to do? We need to worry about, you know, egress. We need to worry about emergency vehicle access. We need to worry about how about, you know, what's the, you know, how's it tied to it? Is there a communication plan, you know, that for something of that nature, which I don't know if that would be appropriate because it would single out the individual putting into that particular location. But I think at the bottom line, I think that alone should give us something to work with. And I think once we have that information, we'll look at that next meeting and then start making some decisions, if that makes sense.
okay.
Hi everybody. Sorry I was running late here. This is Dan here. Question for, I don't know if this is for Ernie or for Mark. When I had looked at the agenda here and looked at this information from the board, what they were asking us to look at, are we looking at kind of like an overlay district, like a riparian buffer overlay district, where you have, hey, here's a pipeline and here's a distance that you can't have these uses in there? I mean, we're not looking to modify a district, zoning district here. I would assume it's going to be kind of like an overlay district.
And that really wasn't my thought. My thought would be in a particular district where there's uses, if you're going to have a certain use, you would put restrictions on that use.
Yeah, I think originally my thought was also along those lines for, say, life care facility. That's outlined in the ordinance as a conditional use. So you probably just go into the and try to modify, you know, ask the questions. Is it close to a pipeline? Yes or no? Or we have to talk with Kristen on how best to do it, but is it in proximity to a pipeline? If so, it has to have some kind of setback for that specific use or some kind of safety parameters outlined for it.
Gotcha. So you'd be looking at making restrictions within those uses. So saying, okay, it's allowed in district whatever, A, B, or C, and then it's allowed in those districts, but conditional use. But if you have one of these uses, you have to follow these criteria for if you're within a certain distance of the pipeline.
Yep. Yeah, it's almost like there'd be additional standards if you were within. So.
That's exactly right, Dan. And my only concern is we'd have to see how do you do that without creating non-conforming areas, correct?
Well, we wouldn't be creating non-conformities because these folks would be coming in for a new conditional use.
Okay, so it wouldn't be, if I revise the ordinance, say, let's look at the, what's the home off of Boot Road there? Right by the pipeline, by the shopping center.
So if you wanted to do something at the
let's say a property, let's say they sell the shopping center and they want to build a new retirement home there. If that ordinance would probably, you know, that if we change the ordinance, that would probably put that right in the zone being so close to
really
the pipeline.
You're exactly right.
Right. So would that particular property be required to comply with the restrictions we put on it? And does that make the other home next to it a non-conforming?
So like the Wellington, so what you're referring to is the Wellington, and it's if it's a if they wanted to do a building expansion later on, they want to do an addition. I don't know how that site was. It was approved before I was involved with the township here. But if they did want to do expansion and we are not, they wouldn't be able to. We would be restricting them to not doing that because. And we have to kind of have a provision. I mean, saying, hey, you already have a use already here. So it's become challenging.
Yeah, I mean, if they were looking for an expansion to the existing conditional application to add more units, then yes, they would probably have a challenge there, or they would challenge the township on that ordinance.
Correct.
So, because they
Let's say,
have
well,
an approved use, they have approved conditional use under old rules. So
is
yeah,
that,
a
is
legal
Wellington,
question.
is Wellington a conditional use?
Life care facilities are conditional use.
Okay, so it's already a conditional use, okay. So these are questions that this poses. That's kind of the thing we got to work through. So if we were to say, let's just say we take something as, I don't want to say simple, but something maybe not as, not as expansive as say, okay, if you, let's say, if you're going to have a new expansion there or a new life care facility, the main entrance or main exit should be on the other side of the pipeline. Would that be something that could be considered problematic in that we're requiring it on a new property, but not on the existing property? Is that a problem, Mark? I have to think through that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are 100,000 scenarios you can think through for these.
Yeah.
It's very difficult exercise to go through as you're sitting here trying to think about it. Because I'm thinking about when you're talking, I'm thinking about, okay, that's a very real possibility that the shopping center, you know, who knows, retail, it's up in the air. We don't know. They have an opportunity to sell, and what's a big use right now? Residential for 55 and over senior living housing. That's a big market. So that's very, very plausible scenario that someone would come in and ask for some kind of zoning change to allow it in the C2. I'd have to go through my book to see if it is right now, but say it's not. And that would be the first question is we got 3 pipelines, what, 1, 2, 4 or 5 pipelines within 500 feet of that property.
Right.
So, yeah,
And I think that's realistic. I mean, you know, the owner passed this year. So the owner of the Hershey's Mill, that whole business, Woodbridge, he passed, and I think it's going. I don't know what the family, you know, the gone to the family, but they're, you know, things change.
So yeah, we've got, you know, it's a big nut to crack, and but I think we'll put together a matrix. We'll outline high intensity uses, districts where they're currently allowed. I think I'll also add, are they a conditional use or are they used by right? Conditional use is kind of where I think we have a hammer, because we have and that's the wrong term. We have an opportunity to hear their application and make reasonable conditions, right? So when it's a use by right in a district, so we got to get it in. We got to think about that.
Well, let's start by finding out what we do know. Like you said,
Yep.
If we can put a matrix together, then we can take it. You know, we'll know what we know, and then we can go a step further.
Okay. I like it.
So makes
One
sense? Go ahead.
One other question.
Yeah.
Propane tanks, the large residential or commercial ones, does the township require they're buried, or can they be above ground?
John, there's a limit on above ground storage tanks, and I believe off the top of my head it's 600 pounds. I actually had that section open for another outdoor storage. Okay, less. So you can have a 600-gallon tank above ground. After that, it has to be buried.
I was just thinking that if within whatever number of feet that we're going to make the requirement of the pipeline, we want to probably make sure all propane tanks are actually buried. I would assume that's a lower explosion risk.
I think that's the type
Or
of thing we need to
secondary,
think
like
about.
you're thinking about secondary.
Secondary explosion.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's okay.
I think that's the type of thing we need to work through, and of course, we're gonna need to have the solicitor, obviously get involved, but I think right now the best step going forward is let's see what we know, what we don't know, and what could be a problem. For example, we'll make some suggestions on high intensity use areas, and we'll take it from there. I think that's where I'd like to leave it, unless anybody else has any other comments.
I have a question, maybe I'm not looking for an answer for it, but the big issue I see with this is the distances. What distance is going to be safe? And my office, on behalf of another township, went through and did the Canary software analysis of our pipe rupture and saw that you're talking about a half mile. And there's a lot of factors that come into play with that, with wind speed, pressure of the pipe. And we spent a few days basically going through the analysis for there. I mean, at some point or another, you can allow our use to go in there, and you have your building on the entrance on the opposite side of the pipeline. But if there's a rupture in that pipeline, I mean, the whole building's gone. So at what point is it that we're going to work on as far as distances? And I don't know that. I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know if anybody knows.
I think that that's a good question. I know when you talk distances, I have concerns with setbacks and the distances are quoting for a number of reasons. What my thought was, and we'll have to work through this, Dan, it's a good question, but is there something that we could do that, really the distance doesn't come into it? It's just a matter of, and I'm really looking for more from a safety aspect. What could we do if it would make reasonable sense that if the event were to occur, we give a higher probability of success of people will either A, not get hurt, or B, be able to have egress or emergency access? So I think that's a good question. I think that's all gonna come out in the as we turn this through the pipeline. But I think we're at the front. Bad choice of words. I guess we're at the front end of looking at this, and like I say, that's why I think it's best that we just let's find out what we know, what we don't know, and then go from there. But that's definitely a concern. What is I know there was a discussion last week. If you read the minutes from the board, Doug Shuey is one of the board members. He's definitely against any setbacks. He won't approve any. Well, he made it pretty adamant about setbacks. So it's certainly out there for discussion. Okay. Any other comments? Great. So we'll see what you produce, Mark, for the next meeting, and we can go from there. The next issue I want to go through is the zoning ordinance review. So, Mark, you had a comment here. We had started this. This is one of our goals for 2020 to look at ordinances. We initially picked the business park, and I think you want to revise taking a look at that. Is that what I'm looking for, Mark? I do have John. Yeah. I do have comments from March that John Schreip had provided, and Dan, although I can't find it, I know you had provided some comments from an effort about 2 years ago where that occurred. What did you envision happening here, Mark?
So John Altschul, Rick, and I had conversation this morning about this, and I think the three of us, we're just not sure what this whole pandemic situation is what effects it's going to have on our corporate parks. There are folks out there saying, and I've heard from property owners in the borough and other places, that they're not going to renew their leases. They're going to allow people to work from home from now on, and these are prominent law firms that are basically going to shutter or just keep one floor and give up the other 2 floors because everyone's going to work from home. We're lucky we have folks in our corporate park that make stuff. We're fortunate. The ones that aren't making stuff aren't there. There's nobody at QVC. there's nobody at Comcast. So we just don't know what's going on. It may be the right thing to wait 12 months or so and see what happens and then take a look at this. Maybe we need to have a consultant help us come in and help us spitball ideas if we see things happening. That was kind of our thought that we were talking about this morning. So
I'll tell you what I'd like to do. And I had gone to the Futures Committee meeting, and I'll get back in touch with Tom Kilborn. They're looking at doing a survey and actually going and interviewing or trying to meet with the folks in the business park or own the businesses to try and get a feel for just that type of question, like what could we do as a township to make it more incentive? And I think the conversation you had today and what you're bringing up here, I think that just, to me, it just takes it up to another level where we probably need to move forward and get hopping on that. Maybe we need to have I don't know if this is proper, but maybe like a separate joint committee between us and the Futuristic Committee to take this on with some help from the township staff.
the other thought was, a couple other thoughts were the guys that really are dealing with this are the developers right now. They're the ones that are hearing from folks who want to build something or a vacant building that they're repurposing into something else. You know, the Hankins, the Eli Kahns, these guys that are out there that are doing stuff. And also we probably need to reach out to the county and talk with them. They're seeing a much bigger picture than just one municipality. They probably have data coming in from all over, and they're probably trying to process it and trying to get ahead of it. So I think we'll make a call to Mr. O'Leary at the county and have a discussion with him, and maybe just, pose the question of our concerns, our thoughts, and see if they can be of assistance. I don't know how you guys think about
Would
that.
this be something that maybe we should make a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors that they establish maybe another commission or a task force to look into the business park, and we can bring in people from the county, we can bring in developers, we can bring in the public.
I think that's definitely something that the board would be adamant about doing if they were, maybe if we were 6 to 8 months down the road and we had some things going on, they may want to do it early. I don't know, but yeah, I think definitely they would want to do that.
Well, why don't I make? I'll tell you.
Yeah,
Why don't I do this? Why don't I make a? I'll make a motion that we. Let me word this right. I can make a motion that we send a letter to the board of directors talking about what we have talked about with business parks, some of the things we're getting, knowing that it's in its infancy, and suggesting the potential to establish another task force or commission or what they would want to address that. Does that make sense?
I would assume it would be, you're looking at here, Ernie, a couple of us from this group and a couple from the Futurist Committee kind of doing this together, as opposed to grabbing in other people from this task force not going out to the public and getting new members.
Well, I think that we and the Futures Committee could do that on our own together.
Yeah.
I don't need the board to do that. I'm just wondering if the board, I'm trying to think bigger picture. Would it make sense? They put the committee they put together for Goshenville, for the overlay district and for the master plan. Yep. Would it make sense to have, say, somebody, a commission together has the right expertise and what have you? For example, how would you get a developer in there to get? I mean, maybe we can go interview developers, or what does the public think about that?
So we had, just for your information, in years past, to give me a little historical, we had we had Neil Fisher from the Hankin Group come out to meet with us a number of years back to just talk to us. I think that was related to the T&D stuff with the in the shopping center and his takes on that area. So I mean, someone like Neil Fisher would be happy to join in on one of our Zoom calls and spend with us a half hour, 45 minutes to kind of share his takes on it. And I think from the combination of Mark's knowledge of people, and I'm happy to share mine too. And I think we could probably get a few developers to come in and talk with us, and especially over Zoom, because they don't have to travel, and they come in and jump on hard calls and talk to us for a half hour with their experience and what they're seeing. I think Neil's a great resource, and I'm sure he'd be happy to do that as a first step.
Yeah, I think a suggestion that the board, what I'm getting out of your motion would be, I move that the Planning Commission recommend the Board of Supervisors authorize a subcommittee to investigate
Future of the business park.
the health of our business parks and industrial districts.
Yeah. When you say a subcommittee, would that be under the planning, or would that be under?
It doesn't have to be subcommittee. It could be task force. It could be whatever.
Task force.
Task force.
My point is that I think that we could do a lot of it between us and the Futuristic Committee, but I think it would be appropriate. I just think it would be appropriate that we might want to ask the Board of Supervisors just to get their input. They might want to keep it at that, or they might want to make it something larger.
Or do you want to put it in their lap, suggest that the Board of Supervisors organize a task force? That way they can be the ones to kind of say, this is okay, good idea, or.
See, I'm trying to go back, when you look at what is the, where's our procedure here? When you look at what the objective is of the Planning Commission, and that's in that document. Is it really are we initiating something that's within our preview to do? I guess that's the question I have. I mean, yeah, we look at planning, yes. We look at ordinances. I'm sorry, go ahead, who spoke?
That was me, Dan. I think it is within our purview to basically look at this and make recommendations forward as far as what we're tasked to do as a planning commission. This is a planning item, and us planning for the future of that business park and ordinance amendments for that. So I do think that's in our wheelhouse for what we are tasked to do as a planning commission. I mean, there's other resources out there that I think can pull in here, but I do think that's an item within ours. And if we want to make a subcommittee here, my initial thought on it is obviously this is the supervisor's decision here, but I think it could be a subcommittee that if we, especially with the Futurist Committee experience and desire to look at the future too, is maybe having a subcommittee of a couple of us and a couple of the Futurist people, and if they want to have a board of supervisors liaison, that would be great, and I think we can kind of brainstorm that together and as a subcommittee of some other groups is what my initial opinion would be.
So just from the way to accomplish this, the next step forward would probably be I can get in touch with the Futurist Committee, ask them if they're interested in forming a subcommittee, and then we can notify the Board of Supervisors that we're going to do that. Does that make sense?
I think that would be fine. I guess Mark would make a determination. Do we need?
Okay. I'm looking at just hold on a second, Mark. I'm looking at the orientation manual, and from the Pennsylvania Municipal Code, responsibilities of the Planning Commission. They call it an agency or commission. One of the first things is prepare a comprehensive plan for the development of the municipality. as set forth in this act and presented to consideration as a governing body. I think that this is an offshoot of a comprehensive plan as far as, or a portion of a plan where we have a business park that we want to make sure is viable going forward. So I think that's within our preview or in our scope of responsibility. Mark, I cut you short. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I think it's always best to run these things by the board and make a recommendation that they authorize something rather than the planning commission just doing it. That's my suggestion. And it could be as simple as I move that the planning commission recommend the board of supervisors form a task force to review and analyze the business park and business and industrial park ordinances to include members from other ABCs or something very simple like that, and let them say, yeah, great idea. What are you thinking?
So why don't you put that's good for the motion, and is add a second sense to that the planning commission has discussed this and suggests the planning commission and future committee as a minimum be two of the committees involved.
Okay.
And then has everyone heard that motion? Anybody have any questions on that motion? I'll make that motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's passed. Mark, you want me to generate the letter? You're going to generate a letter to them, or what are you going to do? You just make a motion?
Yeah, I'll take care of it. Yeah, and I'll send it to you, just a confirmation.
Send it to me, and then I'll send it out to the board, to the commission members. And the next board meeting is when? In 2 weeks?
15th. So their 15th agenda is really slammed. So this is I'll ask Ricky what he thinks. I think we can get this in.
Okay, and in the meantime, I will call Tom Kilburn. I'll give him a call and let him know what we're going to do.
One comment, Ernie.
Yeah.
The survey that they're going to conduct, I would assume that's going to include the industrial districts as well.
I believe it was just the business parts, but I will validate that, John.
Only because
Yeah.
I think there was a question whether in the future we should combine the industrial districts into the business professional and make it all one. And I think this goes along with that we need more information before we even contemplate that.
Yeah.
I agree.
The I and the BP are so similar that the only difference is with the I-1, over here in Applebrook, or I'm sorry, the I-2, all we have over there is a golf course in the chamber and one office building. So, but yeah, it would include the I district, which is Goshen Parkway, which includes Synthes, Johnson & Johnson, Comcast, Mars, or Lavazza. So.
Okay. All right, we have that passed. I'll give Tom Kilburn a call. It's my action. Let him know, and then we'll get something out to it, and we can go from there. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate for revisiting this.
Yeah, sure. I thought, well, I'll pull it out. I know we were going to start working on it, and it just kept getting pushed to the back burner with nothing.
Oh, this is good. This is good discussion. As far as new business, I just wanted to go up, probably not real new business, but I just wanted to go review again what our goals are for 2020, being that this is the September meeting. We're running out of months here. First goal was to continue support for following the comprehensive plan implementation strategies. I'm not going to read it all down, but it had to do with the town center, the Pike Corridor enhancement. All that is kind of on hold till we get through with the TND, which the TND overlay was going to support all that stuff. The next part was business park vitalization, review the BP ordinances and possible enhancement to promote business park longevity. Obviously, we were working on that. That's what we discussed today. Support the Board of Supervisors request for a review of zoning ordinance to support the pipeline. We are in the process of working through that. And then support the Board of Supervisors request to review existing township ordinances for possible revision and updates. We did talk about that. We probably won't get to anything beyond the business park and in the I districts this year. But I know we've talked that made the specific decision to focus on the business park in the I districts. So I think at this point we're pretty much on track for what our goals were for the year. I just wanted to bring that up and keep that out in front of everyone. Okay. Next, other matters, there's a letter of support for this grant application. Does anybody have any questions on this letter? Has anybody read this? Any problems with it? Hearing none, I'm going to assume that's no.
No.
Yeah, just real
Okay.
quick, this is a grant requirement that the Planning Commission reviewed, you know, and I can give you a brief synopsis. Between Reservoir Road and Ellis Lane is the final corridor of the trail that we have not gotten any funding for construction. We're about at the 90% mark on our engineering, and permitting is moving forward nicely. We are working on easements right now with the property owners. Our solicitor will be sending out those offer letters very soon. And we just received all those back from PennDOT reviewer, and they had no comments. And we came in, it turned out good. So we're moving around, we're moving forward. This is a grant funding source that we have never gotten funding through. So, and one of the things that has held us up is not having control of the ground. It's all private property. So not having control of the ground is kind of a sticking point with the state. So with us getting easements here shortly, we hope that this will really help our chances. And this is the largest funding source. You can go for a maximum of $3 million, and we need $3 million and change. So we're doing some estimate work and some sharpening our pencils on that. But so this is the last segment A from Airport Road to Ellis Lane. Will go to bid. We'll be advertised and go to bid here before the end of the year, hopefully, and probably break ground on that segment in spring is our goal. So this one would be like probably 2022 if we were to get funding. So plus there's 3 or 4 other pots of money that we're also going to be applying for. So
Mark, this is a construction cost only, correct?
yes.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so the upfront engineering costs are being funded here through the township, including the acquisition of the right-of-ways needed, easements needed.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification, Dan. So all the engineering costs have been funded through township funds, and the easement acquisition will also be funded, is also already earmarked. Monies are already set aside for that through township funds.
And this includes the section of the Hankin piece that they wanted to develop there along that they was looking for rezoning, correct?
That's correct. So across those 2 parcels, the Hankin group purchased with the old Hicks Farm at 1351, I believe is the address, Paley Pike. Yeah, so those two parcels as well. Yeah.
So obviously what's happening now is Hankin still owns them, and they are obviously township needs to acquire land from them since there wasn't anything dedicated since the development was occurring, correct?
Right. So now we have to pay for that. We don't have, I mean, if they'll gift it, that'll be great. We're gonna obviously ask all the property owners if they're willing to, if they would defer compensation because of the public improvement. We don't anticipate, we don't count on them gifting anything, but we always ask politely. So.
Okay. I got it. I just want to make sure I was on the same page.
Yep.
Okay. Somebody want to make the motion?
I'll make the motion. Mr. Chairman, I move that the Planning Commission send a letter of support to the DCED for the township's CFA MTF grant application for segment B of the Paoli Pike Trail.
Second.
Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, it's approved.
No opposition?
No opposition.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right,
Just so-
last thing.
yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Just so if you're curious, that's the Department of Community and Economic Development for the Commonwealth Funding Authority Multimodal Fund, MTF. So a lot of acronyms there.
Excellent. All right, we don't have a liaison, so I don't think we have a liaison report. Any other correspondence? I don't see any, Mark, and no announcements.
Yeah, right now, nothing on the horizon as far as development plans, conditional uses, or anything like that. There's probably a variance, another dimensional variance coming. It's in relation to some steep slopes on an individual lot. And I expect you'll see that in your packet for October. The engineer and our township engineer, the applicant's engineer, we're working on it right now to see if we can't get it to work without a variance, but it doesn't look good.
Let's see, the zoning board hearing, was that on the property at 352?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay.
so the zoning hearing board, they granted that variance request for the Boyles,
Okay.
that two-story addition, and they'll move forward with that here shortly, I'm sure.
Okay. And I know there was some rumblings about the Traeger Farm. Do you know if that's still being looked at?
I'm sorry, which
The
farm?
Traeger's Farm?
Tegler.
Traeger, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, so the farm has one residence and one garage building and a very large bank barn. Because it's greater than 10 acres, it falls under the farm section of the ordinance. So the Teglers could actually have a second dwelling there. And Mrs. Tegler still lives on the property, and Mr. Tegler passed away, if you hadn't heard. So the family would like to have someone close to help mom out and also take care of a very big farm. Lots of grass to cut, lots of maintenance. So one of the daughters is looks like they're proposing to come in with some plans to build another house there. So it's very similar to what Thorncroft has done, and they've added, single family homes on as well as the Hickses. So if you have 10 acres, 10 or more acres, you can have a second dwelling. So,
Okay, so we should be seeing that maybe at some point.
yep, you will not see that one. That one stays right here in the township and doesn't require any planning approvals.
Okay,
It's a use by right.
okay. That's all I have.
No development, which is good. So
Right.
just could keep it in the family. They've all.
That's all I have. Does someone want to make a motion to close the meeting?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much. Have a
Thank
nice
you,
evening,
guys.
fellas. I appreciate
Thanks.
your help.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
buddy.
See you guys.
Hey,
Thank
Mark.
you, Ruth.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you,
Take
Ruth.
care.
Talk to you later.
Hey, let me know if you need any details on what we talked about. Happy to fill in the blanks.
Okay, well, Susan usually lets me have the recording, so
Oh, super. Yeah, she's going to post it. So, yeah.
so
Okay.
we'll see how that goes. If I need it, I will call you.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Mark, you'll be
Aye.
able to write that letter to the board? Or you want me to
I'll
write it?
get that to you so you can take a look at it.
Yeah, I want to put it in their hands to, it's really kind of a decision. They need to put the right
Absolutely.
people on that, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I think they'll really like that idea, Ernie. I think that makes a lot of sense. Consolidate efforts. I mean, yeah.
Well, here's my main driver is the issue we have with the Hankin Group made my head explode. So I think that was a great opportunity that was missed. And if that's the case, and I don't want the township to say we did it without people being aware. I don't want anybody to walk in here and say, well, this was done, with just two groups and the people didn't get their input and what have you. If we start making changes to the business park or task force on that, I want to make sure that gets fairly public, and I want the board members to I don't want to see the nonsense that went on before. So I'll let them get their skin in the game.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, Mark. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'll be in touch. Yep. Bye.
Bye.